It is official. Donald Trump has officially confirmed him and Kamala Harris are going to have a debate on September 10th. And this is going to be very interesting. We're going to see how that plays out, and we're going to see how, after that debate and even before that debate, the polling starts to shift in each state. Now, with Donald Trump and JD Vance being the Republican ticket, we're also going to see how that will affect more the working class workers and see how that plays into our swing states. And with Kamala Harris picking Tim Walz as her vice president pick, we're going to see how their more appeal starts to affect the polling in each of the swing states as well. Now, even though she's not the official nominee yet, when the DNC convention does show up, she will get all the delegates and she will be the nominee. And we're going to see how Kamala and Tim Walz's ticket will affect the rest of America. And if we come over here on the map, we're going to be adding the latest polling in each swing state to see which states are adding up and who is going to win the president of the United States. Now, starting off with Donald Trump and JD Vance's safe states, these are going to be the states that he won in 2016 and in 2020 by very safe margins. Now, I am going to go ahead and put Iowa, Texas, Florida, and Ohio in there. That is because Donald Trump did win these states both time in 2016 and in 2020, and I just see no possible way that Kamala Harris is going to pull off any of those four states. Now, if we look at Kamala Harris's safe states, these are going to be the states that I just see no possible way of Donald Trump pulling off this year. Now, he could become very close in the margin, especially not like New Jersey. We'll shade it in where it's not a safe state, maybe a little bit more of a leaning and tilt, just because I think Donald Trump will start to pour into the more working class in these states, and I definitely think he could make these states a little bit more run for their money. Now, as you see, these are going to be all your swing states this year that I personally believe. I did not fill in the 1st District of Maine. We're going to go ahead and fill in that because that will be a safe district for Kamala Harris. But these are going to be your states that I am pretty sure are going to be your swing states this year. Now, starting off west with Oregon, the reason I didn't put this down as a safe state is because I did see a most recent poll come out where Harris was only up 5 points in the state against Donald Trump. That is very concerning for the Harris campaign because if you go over here in 2020, you can see Biden did win this state by 16.1, and Hillary Clinton in 2016 won it by 11 points, making that she didn't win that by a safe state margin either, but it was more higher than 5 points. Now, if we take the most recent poll showing that even if you factor in Kennedy, she's still only winning by 5 points, making the state of Oregon not safe, but a likely state for Kamala Harris. And if we come down to Nevada with its 6 electoral votes, this state is very interesting. Donald Trump has never won this state in any election, but the polling is looking very nice for Donald Trump. As you can see, he is up a few in the most recent polls. Harris was up by 2 points, but if we take the most recent poll by the Telegraph, you can see they are dead even. They are tied. And if we come back to 2020, I'll show you Clinton did win it at 2.4 in 2016, and in 2020, Joe Biden won it by the same amount in 2020. So we can pretty much say that Nevada has completely flipped more into Donald Trump's favor. He has more polling that shows he is up. So we are going to give it to the Republicans by a tilt margin. And if we come down to Arizona with its 11 electoral votes, another very critical battleground swing state for Donald Trump especially, we can see in 2020, Joe Biden did barely pull off this state, especially just like Georgia. These states were very close, like Wisconsin. And in 2016, Donald Trump did win this state by 3.5%. Now, if you come over here in the most recent poll, this is very concerning for Donald Trump. He was looking very good in the last couple of polls, but Harris is starting to grow a lot in this state. You can see she's up by 4 points. Then Donald Trump came out with 5 and 2 points to counter that. And now the state is starting to come out with that one poll. Harris is up by 1, and even the most recent poll, Harris is up by 3. Now that makes the state of Arizona very concerned for Donald Trump. We will also put that as a tilt for Kamala Harris, just because if you counter in all the polls, that does favor Kamala more. Now, if you come to New Mexico, I definitely believe, my personal opinion, this will be a close state this year. You can see in 2016, Clinton won it by 8 points, and in 2020, Joe won it by 10. So it is trending a little bit more to the left. But again, the most recent poll only shows Harris up by 7. And if you look at these most recent Biden polls, you can see throughout the year, Biden went from 8 to 6, all the way down to 2 and 1 before he dropped out. So we're going to have to watch Harris very closely and see where her polling goes in this state. But for right now, New Mexico is a likely Democrat state. And if we come over to Colorado, one of the heaviest trending left states, I personally believe, in 2020, Biden won it by 13.5 points. And in 2016, Donald Trump did come just shy of 5 points in this state. Now you can see the state is trending more and more to the left. And in the most recent polls, we do have Harris up by 10 points. So that does make the state barely safe for Kamala Harris. So we will fill that in. Now, if we come up to Nebraska's 2nd district, I don't really have many polling coming out of that district, but you can see in 2020, Biden did win this state or this district by 6 points, 6.5, and Trump won it in 2016 by 2.5. But again, this is a usually heavy more district tending to college voters, which usually vote more to the left. So just in case, we will fill that in as a likely lean district for Kamala Harris. And if we come over to Georgia with 16 electoral votes, this state is probably the most important state in the Sun Belt. As you can see in 2020, Joe Biden did barely pull out the state. It was the closest state of that election. And in 2016, Donald Trump won it pretty big by 5.1 points. But again, if you come to the most recent poll, Donald Trump's lead is starting to go down in this state. He was from 1 all the way down to 7. And now, but in the most recent poll, we can see he is up by 2. So that will still make the state of Georgia not a tilt, but a lean margin for Donald Trump. And if we come over to North Carolina with 16 electoral votes, just like Georgia, another very critical battleground state, but this one isn't as important as Georgia just because I personally believe it will go to Donald Trump. In 2016, he won it by 3.5 points, and in 2020, he won it by 1.3 points, even with Joe Biden's big year when he flipped all of Donald Trump's swing states. Now, I do believe this will go to Donald Trump. In the most recent poll, you can see he is up by 3 points in this state, so that will make the state, just like Georgia, more of a likely lean kind of state for Donald Trump. And if we come to Virginia with 13 electoral votes, I personally believe this will be the closest swing state this year, just like New Mexico and Minnesota. Now, with Tim Walz being picked from Minnesota, I think she might be able to secure that state. We'll have to check it out. But I think Virginia will be our closest swing state this year. You can see in the most latest polling, Donald Trump is leading by 4 points. Now, this was a little while ago, back in July, even though it has been back and forth with Kamala and then Donald Trump. But since it is the latest polling, we're going to have to give it to Donald Trump. I won't give it to him by 4 points just because it is going back and forth, but we will make it a tilt for Donald Trump. And if we come up to Pennsylvania, a very, probably the most important state of this election, just because it is the biggest swing state with 19 electoral votes, we can see that Kamala Harris's lead is still there in the state. It has went from very little and it's starting to grow even more. But in the most latest poll, Donald Trump is up by 2. Now, in 2020, Joe Biden did win it by 1 point. But in 2016, Donald Trump did barely manage to pick off the state by under 1 point. So with him being up by 2 points, that is concerning for the Democrats because a lot of the Republicans are starting to show out in Pennsylvania. So we will fill that in just like Georgia, North Carolina, more of a lean for Donald Trump. If we come up to New Hampshire, probably the least important swing state of this election, but it's still 4 points, so that is good. So we will have to check out the most latest polling where Donald Trump is down by 6 points. Even if you factor in Kennedy, he's still down by 5 or 6 points. Now, again, in 2016, Donald Trump did come very close to beating Hillary Clinton in this state. She barely managed to pick him off by less than half a point. But again, if you go to 2020, Joe Biden did beat him pretty decently by 7 points in this state. So you could say that New Hampshire is starting to trend more to the left. But again, I think Donald Trump will have more of a 2016 looking kind of map this year. And I don't think New Hampshire is going to go likely. I think it will go more of a tilt and lean, maybe a 4 to 5 point win for Kamala Harris. And if we go over to Michigan, a very important critical battleground state, you can see Kamala Harris's lead is growing tremendously in this state. Now, Donald Trump did win this state back in 2016 by 0.22 of a point. I think that was the closest state of that election, but in 2020 he did lose it by almost 3 points. So that is very concerning. But again, in the most recent poll, these polls are going back and forth. Even this biased Bloomberg poll has Harris up by 12, which I just think that is impossible. There's no way she's winning by 12. But we will take the most recent poll where Donald Trump is leading by 1 in the state and give Michigan a tilt margin for Donald Trump. And if we go to Wisconsin with 10 electoral votes, another critical battleground state of the Rust Belt, you can see Harris is almost up by 2 points in the state. Now, again, in the most recent poll, they were tied even, but another poll just came out today where Harris was up by 3 points. So we will favor Harris. Again, in 2016, Donald Trump barely did pick off the state, less than a point. But in 2020, it was another very close state, just like Arizona, Wisconsin, and Georgia. So we could say that Wisconsin is starting to trend a lot more to the left or to the right. But again, with Harris being up 3, I definitely think that, I don't know, that might be a little biased. I don't think she will win the state by 3, but we will tilt that to Kamala Harris just because she is up in this state. And if we come to our last state on the map, Minnesota, a very important state, it was very interesting watching Kamala Harris pick Tim Walz from Minnesota instead of Josh Shapiro, where I think she could have definitely maybe improved in Pennsylvania a little bit more. But she went with a pick from Minnesota, so maybe that's saying that she thought she might lose Minnesota as well. So we'll have to see what kind of polling comes out of there. But in the most recent poll, she is winning by 5 points. Now, she has gone down in the state. She was up by 6. Now she's all the way down by 5. I don't think she will win the state by 10. I think that's a little biased. You can see in 2016, Donald Trump came very close to winning the state. Clinton won it by 0.5 of a point. Now in 2020, Joe Biden did win it by 7 points. But again, that was his big year, so will have to take that in consideration. But I don't think she will win it by 7 points. I think possibly this year it could look more like a Hillary Clinton win, maybe a point all the way up to like 3 or 4 points. So I'm not going to give that as a tilt, but we'll give that more of as a likely lean for Kamala Harris to win. Now, as you can see, Donald Trump already has 304 electoral votes, so he has already won. I definitely think the overall district of Maine will go to the Democrats just because that is a left-trending state. But you can see Donald Trump has won. He has 304 electoral votes, and Kamala has 234. Now, if Kamala does improve in the Rust Belt, we can see that she will win the presidency, maybe even if she picks off Virginia as well. So she has a lot to work to do up here. But if we factor in the current polling, we can see Virginia goes to Donald Trump, Pennsylvania goes to Donald Trump, and Michigan goes to Donald Trump at the moment, giving Donald Trump the win of the current election.